Hey everyone, you're watching Creep Cinema and I'm your host, Mark Tauriello. Thank you so much for watching. Today I decided to do a review on the movie that I personally consider to be the scariest movie of all time that scares the shit out of even me. And that movie is Candyman. Now, for the record, I'm going to say I grew up on horror, okay? One of the first movies I ever saw was Nightmare on Elm Street. My dad and I, we just would watch horror movies all the time. So nothing really scared me. Nothing got to me. The Exorcist never scared me. Night of the Living Dead never scared me. But for some reason, Candyman, that movie fucking scares me. And it's not like, boo, like jump scares kind of thing. There's just so much about that movie and story that is so off-putting, and I'll get into it later, I think for me it's the scariest movie. I don't really watch it frequently because I get, weirded out after watching it, and I recently just watched it again after years and years of putting it off because I was like, you know what, this movie is so good. It is so good. That's why it's effective as a horror movie. Candyman is such a good, smart, well-written story, and the way that it's filmed, this movie, I'm just gonna give it the rating right now, 10 out of 10. Candyman gets a 10 out of 10, in my opinion, because it's the only movie that actually scares me. So, if you're watching this, chances are you've seen it. People that watch horror reviews normally have seen the movies and they're watching the reviews to hear other people's take on it or input. So I doubt that, Rated G Sally is going on horror reviews and watching these before they decide to watch it. But if in the event you're watching this and you don't know anything about the movie, it's about this woman who's a graduate student, and she lives in Chicago, Illinois, and she's doing research on urban legends. Mainly this urban legend of Candyman, which is if you say his name 5 times in the mirror, in the dark, he comes out and he has a hook for a hand and he kills you. So in investigating this urban legend, it kind of parallels to life in this area called Cabrini Green, which is the projects. And unfortunately, it's an underdeveloped area and it's considered the hood. I can say this because I grew up in a ghetto, and it was called Irvington, New Jersey, and it was one of the most dangerous towns to live in the state of New Jersey. It still probably is. So I'm completely familiar with how life in these areas is. And those are real life horrors, and the fact that this movie fuses together real life horror of these urban areas that are really dangerous and depressing with something more fantasy and dark is why I think it's so effective. So, in doing her research with Candyman, she finds out that in this complex of apartments called Cabrini Green, they all live in fear of Candyman because there is also a gang that sort of worships this story, and they've used the Candyman legend and persona to kind of wreak havoc in these projects. So in doing this, she summons Candyman as part of her research while also investigating some murders that took place in Cabrini Green that relate to the Candyman story. So when she does this, obviously her life starts to spiral because now Candyman has appeared and starts killing everyone that she's involved with. Kills her friend who she's doing the research with. Kidnaps this baby in the apartment. And the more and more she gets involved with the Candyman legend, the more and more shitty her situation gets. So there's just so much to kind of go over because it's a very elaborate kind of movie. But basically, it's one of those horrors, too, where no one else sees him but her. And now he's kind of framing her for his deeds, you know, his killings. So it's as if she's doing it. And at the end of the movie, she basically has like a showdown with Candyman, and she dies. And yeah, I mean, I don't think the plot's really as important to talk about, but it's just that movie is so creepy. It's so creepy. I grew up in Irvington, man, and that town looked like Candyman Central. It did. And I remember on the Parkway, if anyone's from New Jersey, you might know this area. On the Parkway, when you go through Newark, and I think it's right before you hit Bloomfield, there used to be this tall apartment complex. It was huge. And I don't know if it was the projects or not, but I just remember, like, you would see mattresses hanging out the window. It just looked like hell. Now they renovated it, and it looks like a nice high-rise, beautiful apartment. But I just remember, like, when I was younger and we would pass it on the highway, I would be like, oh man, Candyman lives there. So it would creep me out. And when we pass that building now on the highway, I still get creeped out, even though it's beautiful and it's modern and they cleaned it up and everything. But it's, to me, like, that will always be Candyman's home. But the funny thing is that in the movie, the white woman that was doing the research, she lived in a beautiful high-rise apartment that was kind of across from the projects, and they had the same exact architect plans and everything. And what you realize is that it was actually gentrification. So this movie really talks about a lot of issues that are relevant today, like you know, going into these, you know, predominantly black neighborhoods and having white people come in and you know, tear it down and make it into these super luxurious high-rises that no one can afford. So what I like about Candyman is that it's one of the first horror movies I've ever seen that touches on race and racism and the ugliness that comes out of racism and the ugliness that comes out of these sort of areas, you know, that are underdeveloped. Tony Todd, who plays Candyman, is the best person they could have picked for this role. The best. I heard that they were going to use Eddie Murphy, which would have been terrible. Oh, that would have been so awful. It would have lost its effect. Because he's, first of all, Tony Todd, he's so tall. And he's got this, like, deep, creepy voice. And his hands are freaking huge. So, I mean, him alone as, like, a form is intimidating. And what makes it even more bizarre is that Candyman is very, like, romantic and very, like, Shakespearean. And you're taking these ideas and you're fusing it together with, like, you know, urban style kind of hip hop, which you never really see that fusion together. But for this movie, it works. And I think it takes the story and the character to a much darker and more unusual kind of place. And the fact, too, like, I found out recently that some of the graffiti, you'll see it says, like, sweets to the sweet or sweets for the sweet. And that actually comes from Shakespeare. And it's a term that they would use for funeral flowers, for dead people. And I think that is just so off-putting and so creepy that they use that, but they did it in a graffiti style. So I don't know, like, this movie is just, like, it's just so smart, and it's a fusion of a lot of effective ideas that just work so well together, that makes the social commentary, that does scare you, that does create this character that's really intimidating, that, like, if you saw, you would shit yourself. I sure would. And then I have to call out this one scene that gets me. It's, like, the only jump scare in the movie, and it's when, I'm forgetting her name, Helen, like, the main girl, the main woman, she goes in her bathroom and, like, his hook comes flying out of the freaking mirror at you, and it's like, ah, and it's, like, violently going, and there's, like, a scene where they cut to the side and it's her running out of the bathroom and you still see the hook, like, reaching for her. That part scares the shit out of me. I'm 31 years old, and every time I look in a mirror or go to the bathroom, I think that fucking hook is gonna come out and get me. I really do. And I'm 31 years old till this day. That scene always gets me. But I watch it because I'm like, you know, it's fun to be scared. So, I mean, overall, You know, if you want smart horror, watch Candyman. That movie scares the shit out of me. And if it scares me, I think it speaks volumes to it. The music is also really good. It's like that weird piano ballad. And they used it in American Horror Story Asylum. And it was well used in Candyman, and I thought it was well used in American Horror Story. So there's just like a lot going on that's like so rich and so dark. So anyways, that's my review. Candyman, you get a 10 out of 10, and you scare the shit out of me. So guys, that's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching Creep Cinema, and I will send more reviews your way. Bye.